Thank
All
you.
right, guys, thanks so much for joining us. I've got Marcus here. We're doing I would say, a reaction video to Dating as an Asian Man with Khan. He had some very juicy thoughts about that video, and I would love to hear a little bit more about that. So I don't know if you want me to read the note that you sent over or if you want to just take it from here, but I thought it was great that you had a really passionate response to that video.
Right. Yeah, go with the notes. That's fine.
Okay,
Oh,
cool. I'm just going to read the beginning because I thought it was well written. So you say, by all means, what Khan brought up are valid points, and I think we're all well aware of them as Asian men, talking about dating as an Asian man in America. However, at what point does the defeatist woe is me attitude do anything about changing the perspective around an Asian man? Nothing against Khan, but the body language, the acceptance of the limitation on height, or even the lack of cultural understanding already puts the Asian man, yourself included, on the back foot. And these subtle but powerful verbal and nonverbal cues further cement the stereotype, and something has to change. It's giving me chills
yes.
the way you wrote that. So tell me,
Oh,
what do you
yeah.
mean? What do you mean? Tell me.
Well, so it's the. So I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia, and South and the East Coast is a little bit different from when I moved to. Like I lived in California twice in my life. One in Orange County and then one in San Diego. And the common theme that I've seen is kind of with all the Asian guys, when you see them somewhere, they're like, "Hey, we're friends," right?
Hmm.
And I see there's a huge separation, especially for the guys that's always been in the West Coast versus us guys. Like I joined the service when I was young, so I'm traveling all over the world, kind of piecing out exactly where I fit in the dating scene, not just being an Asian. But there's definitely a wide margin, a big gap in regards to the way that we have our attitudes, our confidence level, and then we measure that against somebody who's lived in, I lived in Irvine and I've had a lot of Asian friends in Irvine, Orange County, LA. It's a little different in regards to swagger, attitude, confidence. And, Con made a lot of good points, but at the same time, it's always those types of guys that's been the example, right? And so it's kind of like, okay, where's the obverse of those types of individuals? And like he's a good guy from just from listening to him, but I'm just like, okay, let's have a one-on-one talk with somebody else that's different.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I asked to come on to kind of
Yeah.
show just a different perspective with somebody with a different flavor. That makes sense.
I love it. Well, first of all, thank you for your service.
Thank
Super
you.
cool. Yeah. So tell me about like how you see it. What is your perspective on all this?
So the first thing I always ask is how does an Asian man define his masculinity?
Mm-hmm.
That's always the biggest thing. Um, I think when you overcome something with your own hands, with your own brain, with your own feet outside of academia, that gives you a little bit of weight when it comes to the social scene, if that makes sense. For me, I mean, I had the grades, but I chose an occupation that makes it very challenging, like
Mm.
life and death challenging.
How so?
Because I knew the occupation that I was going to go to was not very Asian centric.
Okay.
It is it's the more, not say combat oriented, but it looks for different types of people.
Mm-hmm.
And when I asked myself, because I was the same as the rest of the guys, I was shy, I was an ugly duckling. I mean, I still think that I am,
Oh.
and there wasn't anything to break me out of that. My stepmother was Chinese and my dad was Filipino, so they're very Asian centric in what you're supposed to do after you get out. Go to finance, go to tech. And I'm just kind of like, there's something more to life than just following your parents' wishes for you.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I made that transformation and when I went past what I thought I was capable of, and then it came into the dating scene, it was, to me, it wasn't hard. I didn't have any difficulty um, because I was sure of myself. My masculinity was defined. I made myself really good at the things that Asians aren't good at, and
Like
I made
what?
myself really bad at things that Asians are supposed to be good at. So, for example, like breakdancing, right? Asians are supposed to be really good at breakdancing,
Yeah.
and I suck at it on
Oh.
purpose, like on purpose. I chose to dance salsa, bachata, tango, line dancing. I can
Okay.
go. So when you see somebody, it's like, okay, I'm measuring stereotypes. If I'm a white woman, a black girl, Hispanic, and it's just kind of like, okay, well, I think he's supposed to be good at these things. And at times people can be a little bit of a smartass and say, hey, can you break dance?
Mm-mm.
And I'm just like, no, I don't. No, I'm so sorry. But there's this dynamic when you see somebody from another race, especially like an Asian guy, and he does things that are outside of what people think he's capable of. And it gives you this like, oh, hey, who's that guy?
Mm-hmm.
Um, it creates the interest is because you have done something that people aren't expecting you to do.
Mm. Okay.
Um, so how does one define their masculinity? What have you done for yourself outside of academia with your own two hands, your own 2 feet? A lot of the guys that I saw, they stayed where they were at growing up. So stayed from their typical Asian family, typical Asian business, never really ventured where you're like the lone guy and you have to adapt to. And I think the second you earn the ability to be accepted in a different community, in a different setting, that holds a special place in your heart. That's when you know that you could adjust and adapt to other social spaces. If that makes sense.
And how does that influence dating for you?
Because I'm really good at a lot of things, and those things that I'm good at is a big connecting piece of the social setting. So,
Okay.
like, can an Asian guy like ride a horse? Like, I asked myself that question. It's like not too many Asian guys I know how to ride a horse. Know how to ride a horse, right?
Okay.
So it's like, oh, can you dance partner dances? Typically, we don't ever see that. I never saw that growing up in Atlanta, but boom, there you go. Like, are Asian guys supposed to be really good at sports? Not really, outside of basketball, especially like for Filipino guys. I'm really good at football.
Mm-hmm.
And for the male to male bonding with other cultures, it's like, oh, okay, like that's the way you earn respect. And the dating piece is like, oh, I wasn't expecting you to know all these things or be really good at these things. It helps open up that being accepted in regards to being an actual worthwhile partner.
So I'm going to challenge you on this. Do you feel like you have to be purposely non-Asian to be considered attractive on the dating scene?
Well, let's define that a little bit more. What is it to be non-Asian?
Well, like you're saying that doing these things that are outside of what is expected for an Asian man, do you feel compelled to do things outside of what is expected in order to be considered like at the same, threshold as like say a white guy? Do you feel like you have to behave like him to get the
No,
attention of certain women?
no, I think you have to be very defined in how and what you feel about yourself. And that's where like the defining your masculinity kind of comes in. Because the second you have that, there is no what an Asian guy is supposed to be, blah, 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 blah. This
Hmm.
is what the capabilities of Marcus, right?
Mm,
Capabilities of Daniel. So it's
yeah.
not like I don't have any Asian traits that I know of, just the traits that I know what to do.
Yeah. And so
Um,
how do you define your masculinity? How do you find that for yourself?
I define my masculinity because I was an ugly duckling, right? So when you're ugly, and I tell all my friends all this all the time, it's like good looking people don't have ugly people resilience, if that makes
It's
sense.
true.
Right? Because they have pretty people privilege. Well, how do I define my masculinity? Okay, well, I've always been ugly, so to speak. So I had to move the traits that are likable into other things. And then when my looks caught up to my values, my mindset, my confidence, it kind of balances itself. Does
Hmm.
that make sense to you?
Yeah. I don't know if you saw the video with Derek. I'll link all the videos below this video, but he spoke about dating as an Asian man and how he kind of compensated with like surfing. He became an amazing surfer and he got all the attention.
Yeah.
It sounds a little bit like that, like putting it or you know, do you feel like you have to work harder in certain ways in order to be
No, not really.
no.
I mean, if everybody around you surf, you know what I mean? It's
Mhm.
kind of like where's the skill set moving to?
What do you mean?
And so, like, if I lived in Hawaii and
Mhm.
everybody surfs, like the surfing thing is a cultural thing, not necessarily a skill set that I need to find girls.
Yeah.
Um, Or I was a hibachi chef when I was 15. Right? I didn't do that to get chicks. I did that as a skill set to be able to survive
Mm-hmm.
if our grades weren't good. And so, do you do things, or do you gain your skill sets to gain an advantage for getting the attention that you want from other women, or is your character and what you bring out to people get you the woman that you want?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that answers the
Yeah, I want to go back to when you say, let's see. So the acceptance of the limitation on height.
question.
Tell me how you would see that differently.
Yes. Um, I grew up with a lot of smart alecky women growing up in Atlanta, and so you have to be able to. Some things you can't overcome, right? Some things are a drawback. But in regards to the height thing, I'm 5'10", which is considered kind of really tall for Asian guy.
Hmm.
So I don't have that much of a problem, but obviously there's women that are taller than me. And the question is, and I say this tongue in cheek, I was like, if I kick you in the leg, we'll be the same height,
Right.
right? And that usually kind of breaks the ice. Now, are you going to win every time with that joke? No, not really. But how
Hmm.
many examples have you seen of short guys with beautiful women? Right? You can't change
A
the way that
lot.
you're a lot.
Yeah.
You can't change that you're short.
Hmm.
But do you carry that like a big heavy bag, and does it show on your face and in your attitude when you see somebody really tall?
Hmm.
And that's where the confidence kind of comes in. I've dated women that are like 6'2", 6'3",
Hmm.
and I was like, hey, do you have an issue with somebody that's shorter than you? And here's a secret: a lot of women just going, I really don't care about height because I'm too tall, and it's really hard to find a date when I'm 6'2", 6'3".
Yeah. So what would you tell the guy that was defeatist about dating as an Asian man? What would you tell him?
Why are you that way?
Mm.
And can you define in succinct terms why you feel that way about yourself? Is the very first question that I ask. And I've asked these questions to a lot of Asian guys that I met through mutual friends. It's like, why are you the way that you are? What examples have you had that says otherwise, that you could overcome and jump through the hump? I didn't have any Asian guys that I look up to and says, oh, that guy's cool. You
Hmm.
kind of have to be the guy, the example that you want to be. And that's the main reason I kind of contacted you. I was like, hey, there's nobody else. If not me, then who? If not now, then when? So if I like a guy that comes up to me with that defeatist attitude, it's like, okay, where does it come from? Does it come from your parents? Does it come to your upbringing? Is it the lack of experience, the amount of no's versus the amount of yeses? And what have you overcome?
Mm.
And usually we can work with that.
Hmm.
Unless you lived in a bubble for 18, 19, 20 years of your life, you've done something. It's just
Yeah.
maybe nobody's seen, or maybe you haven't spoken it out into the world to see.
Yeah. So how have you been able to cultivate that perspective of like, I'm going to be the role model that I wish to see in the world?
It's very strong for me because usually I'm the only one. And so who do you like those skill sets offer? I actually have a friend who's the only other Filipino guy that I know, and I'm like the wish version of him. Like, this is how good this guy. And I tell him straight up, I was like, dude, I'm the wish version of you. But yet he even told me, he's like, there's something about you that I don't have. And if we combine the things that we like about each other, it'll create somebody that nobody's ever seen can make a really big impact. Right? So am I always the token? Does everybody look at me? Yes, because usually I'm the only one.
Mm.
So if there's nobody that has a standard or has a picture of what an Asian man looks like, then and I asked them, "Have you ever met one?" And they were like, "No." Well, I guess I'm the guy. And you set those expectations off the jump,
Yeah.
and it sucks sometimes if you fall short because now that person's picture is like, "Oh yeah, I met Marcus. He's the only Asian guy that I met. He sucks."
Oh. So how
Um,
do you feel all of this translates for you in dating?
all the skill sets and all the experiences that I got made it actually pretty easy. And outside of the looks, I mean, the looks department is the look department. People don't understand that Asians have these connective tissues that's already set within each culture.
Hmm.
for example, when dating Latinas, right? Family is a very big thing, right? And so it is in the Asian community. Right? And sometimes we kind of kick ourselves in the foot sometimes being really close to our family, right? And the culture that we bring. In regards to dating African American women, the the value of education has always been really big with them. The respecting is always big with them. And so I'm just like, okay, well, I've always been the guy that has to gain people's respect. Gaining your respect shouldn't be a thing for me. If you value degrees and you value economic success, right? That's a thing that we also have. Sometimes too much,
Hmm.
right at the very beginning. Um, you know, with Caucasian women, they love. This is what I think. This is what I've seen. Like just being in the military, this the Caucasian and Asian connection has always been there, ever since like the military went to the Asian countries and started marrying indigenous women. In regards to an Asian man to a Caucasian woman, it's really easy because, at least in my experience,
Hmm.
because the adventure of wanting to see other cultures has been opened generationally since the 70s. I've
Mm.
seen more Asian guys with white women than I've seen, you know, Asian men with black women.
Interesting. I think a lot of people need to hear that because a lot of people I work with feel like, oh, I usually only date Asian women. But that's interesting to hear your perspective on that. The most common interracial marriage is with an Asian woman and a white man, I
Mhm.
believe. They're the
Yes.
most common. Yeah. Interesting. But I like your perspective. So, what would you tell a guy who has a defeatist mentality and he really likes white girls? What would you tell him so that he could get over that? Like, oh, they're not going to like me.
Two things. Culturally, right? If you want to make the cultural connection, right? Where's she from, and what does she see in white guys that she really likes? Right? If she doesn't see color perfect, then is it the character? Is it the ability to connect? Is it skill set? And then you find you be good at it in private and be really good at it in
So, can you give me an example?
public. Yeah, sure. Uh, I dated I dated this Italian woman, and she was as white and blonde as you are, and she was really tough. And I asked her, I was like, "Hey, I understand you're Italian and you're really tough. Why are you that way? What is it in a guy that you want to have as your ideal romantic slash sexual relationship?" Right?
Hmm.
And the whole like penis thing kind of came into play,
How
which
so?
it's like, well, you're Asian, your wee wee isn't exactly like the ideal.
Oh.
And I was like, ah,
How
but
do you respond to that?
it's it. And I thought about it. I was like, okay, I don't know if she's being facetious, but I'm just gonna go with this, with this answer. I was like, okay, if that's the only thing you have in your repertoire, you're in real trouble.
Ooh.
Lucky for you, I have more things than that to give you. Mhm. And those are the things that just kind of make us like, well, really? Like, what are you talking about? And obviously, you make it very mysterious. I'm like, I'm not gonna tell
Oh,
you.
interesting.
Because
Okay, okay, I like
that
it.
was like, there's only one way to find out, girl.
I like it. I've heard that is not true anyway. So I like the way that you handled it. Yeah, that's interesting.
So,
Interesting.
but you have the confidence in yourself to say
Yeah. Where
that.
do
Right?
you think that came from?
I don't know.
I don't know
I
either.
just had a lot of practice. A lot of people say that to me throughout my life.
I know. That's kind of a, yeah, okay. I've heard it too, but I feel like I never hear it from people who actually have experience. And the people I do know who have experience are like, that's not even true. So,
So it's kind of like, well, and like, I'll take care of that question in that aspect. And then if you ever had one before, then all right.
yeah.
Next question. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um,
Interesting.
so that's one. In regards to the culture thing, in the attitude thing, the biggest piece that I want to give out there is, it's a repetitive question. When are you going to get out of your own way?
Mm. So you put it back on them.
Because it really, I mean, it stays on them and it is on them anyways already.
Yeah.
So if typical Asian guy, right, and we get this really kind of homogeneous example, right? You see Asian guys, a dude with glasses, a white shirt with a part, right?
Uh huh.
Well, if we're going to talk about micro, and I've had a lot of different women and men kind of change it up because I had like a horrible style, but I was like, okay, well, what looks good in you? What kind of style? What kind of clothes? Right? What kind of just outwardly stuff can you have enough money? You're in tech. Buy some clothes. You
Hmm.
know, skill sets. Are you good at things that people think is a good thing to be good at? Are you good at sports? Right? If you get invited to a barbecue, how can you help?
Ah,
Invited to the
add
beach.
value. Yeah.
Are you good at volleyball? Are you practice? Um, I know in California, in Irvine, all these Asian kids would go to 24-hour fitness, and like the girls would watch from the other side of the glass how these Asian guys would play, and they didn't know I was really good at basketball, and I picked up a very typical Asian guy, like 5'2", real skinny, glasses, part haircut, and I'm like, dude, you're gonna be on my team, right? And I practiced with him before the game because he lacked the fundamentals, but I'm like, hey, we could just work on it real quick, 5 minutes. We won the game by 1 point, and
Nice.
he made the final basket
Oh,
on the technique that I showed,
okay.
right? And like I gave him a hug and I lifted him up, and I was like, this is what it feels like to be a winner, and this is what it feels like to win.
Mm-hmm.
And I pointed to the window. I was like, "You see that?" And the girls all were looking. And I was like, "Those eyes and those smiles and that excitement of people jumping up and down, you made.
Oh,
I just facilitated,
yeah.
and those big confidence boosters." And I walked. I grabbed his hand and we walked outside. He'd be like, "Ladies, this is your Michael Jordan. This is your Jeremy Lin.
I
How did you like that? Like,
love it.
do you enjoy that? Like to see your own people win?" And there was just one Latina girl was like, like I didn't know you were really good at basketball. I was like, I might be good, but I didn't make the winning shot.
Mm-hmm.
So you think I might have dragged him to a victory, but at the end of the day, it's within his own hands, his own courage, his own confidence that got him over the top, which helped me because we won.
Yeah.
Right?
So this is so interesting because I just had a conversation today with an Asian man who
Hmm.
said, and I felt like there was a little bit of feeling of defeat. He said, I learned when I was young that you have to be a winner to be good enough. And I was thinking, do you not believe that you are a winner?
Yeah.
Right? So do you believe that's true? And what would you say to somebody who is thinking that they're not the winner already?
How can I show you that you can win? Or
Mm,
let's take a step back. How many things have you won? Right?
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And being an Asian guy, you're gonna lose a lot, right? But you push off all the L's, right? You're taking the W's that you get, right? Small ones in the very beginning, big ones when it counts.
Mm-hmm.
And when the game is on you, on your hands, and you win something, that level of confidence sticks to you. And that's how you overcome the rejection, or you're not my type, or you're too short, right? Because you built a resilience in the negatives. I say if that's the guy, that came to you like I don't ever feel like a winner. Come to Arizona, come talk to me. We'll get you a dog, and then go back to wherever you're from.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one thing I heard you say that is so interesting to me is that you challenge the women back.
Mhm.
First, you're willing to have that conversation on like um looking at stereotypes in the first place, which already to me is attractive because I think a lot of people just make assumptions, especially when we were going through the video with Khan. There's the underlying assumption that they're not going to like me because I'm Asian,
Yeah.
versus what if I challenge the fact that they need to be educated on this topic? And I personally experienced that in my 100-date experiment, where I was attracted to a Middle Eastern guy, but I'd never dated a guy before that was
Mhm.
from the Middle East. And my mom, who has no experience dating Middle Eastern men, said, "Be careful, they don't treat women well." Right? And now all Middle
Yeah.
Eastern men fall under this umbrella because my mom says, and I told him, and he educated me. He's like, "I would love to educate you on how the media perceives people."
Mhm.
And it opened my mind. So I don't know where I'm going with this, but I like that you're saying confront the stereotype. That's
Mhm.
really what I hear is super different in your mentality, is confront it, put it on the table, and then like see if it has any legs to stand, because it doesn't seem like it does half the time.
Yeah, and a lot of those times it's you're defining those stereotypes within your own head, and you project that into other people.
Yeah.
Um, if I'm dating you, for example, right? I list out what if I don't already express it outwardly. It's like, what Asian stereotype do I think that she believes in? And I cut it, put it in a piece of paper, cut in half, right? And then after a date, I'm like, okay, well, these stereotypes, the ones that she believed in, or those assumptions I made true because the second she stood up, she's 6'7" and I'm 5'2".
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And like I said, if you never won, it becomes a self-licking ice cream because it replays every single date with every single one.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So
I
then how
see
do
it.
you?
Yeah, I see it even in like swipe behavior on dating apps. People will say, I didn't swipe right when I wanted to because I knew she'd reject me because I'm Asian, or I knew she'd reject me because I'm this height, or I knew she'd reject me because whatever. What would you tell guys of that?
I say you'd never know, right?
Yeah,
But here's the thing: you have the ability to reject people too.
yeah,
Like, did we forget about that?
yeah,
Like, who says that she's not your type or she's not gonna swipe right to you? You don't know that.
right.
Mm. I mean, if you're looking through just at a picture, like who knows? A lot of the white women that I've dated, I've already dated Asian guys before.
Mm-hmm.
So how
Yeah.
do you know? You really don't. And for the ones that haven't, that's where the ice breaking conversation kind of comes into. But most times, like you don't know that. Like, dude, just throw it out there, see what happens. It ain't gonna hurt you.
Yeah.
Yeah. If this
Is
is a game of averages, then averages on your side, dude.
Yeah. And is it not another stereotype to assume that maybe a white girl with blonde hair won't like you, right?
Yeah,
Is that not another stereotype?
exactly.
Yeah.
I, like I said, you bring that person there, I'm like, dude, I'll take take a look at your Tinder, I'll take a look at your Bumble, I'll take whatever. I'm just gonna swipe for you. I'm that guy.
Yeah.
I
Right?
don't care if she's a 20, a 10, or she got beat with a bag of nickels. Like we're going for it. Like this is this is if this is the thing that we're going for,
Yeah.
that is math. Like
Yeah.
what is she gonna say? No, not respond to you? Like people already don't respond to you after they swipe. So what's the difference?
Yeah. Yeah. I think this conversation is relevant for all men, probably women too, but all men who don't go after the one they really want. And they keep going after the one that they think are gettable. And then they're dissatisfied because they're just like never excited about that woman. And I think
Because you
it's,
know that's not the best you can do.
yeah. And I think it's common that people don't even go after them because they think, nope, there's no way that person's going to like me. But really, why not try? Why not open your heart to it? If you're just afraid of rejection, you're not even open to what you actually want. It's impossible to get it if you're not open to it.
Right.
Yeah.
Very much so. And you know those leaps of faith. I've dated like 2 millionaires out of those big leaps of faith.
Yeah. How did
And
that feel when you were going after it?
it felt amazing.
Yeah.
There was one, she was a lawyer and she had a British accent. Where she grew up in the UK as a kid. And we went up to this restaurant and it's like a couple's restaurant.
Okay.
It's in Times Square
Hmm.
and it's like a revolving restaurant. And then I came in and there was like these pieces of paper on each table and it had like their combined like incomes on the piece of paper.
Interesting.
You see, just kind of walk around. You see, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, 2 million,
What?
right? Mr. and Mrs. Duncan, 6 million, and then it's Rachel and guest, 2,065,000.
What?
And I sat down like I was the one owning 2 million, and
Right?
right, and I'm just kind of like, well, what can you do?
Yeah.
If it's like she likes me because I make $65,000, or she likes me because I bring something different.
Yeah. That's really cool. That's really cool. I think a lot of people would be intimidated by that. So you
Yeah.
didn't know until that dinner?
Oh no, I knew.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. But
Like
you
that,
went
I looked at a
after
Prada
it.
bag. I was like, nope, I can't afford that. I looked at a Gucci watch and I was like, like my Target watch it does the same thing. But I
So
never. That was never a thing that like I felt bad about.
how did you not feel bad about it? I mean, not that you should, but like how can you help people who are hearing this be like, "Oh, I could do that too."
Yeah, well, that's what like like I when I went to Iraq and Afghanistan, I saw what the real world really was.
Mhm.
Right? And then when I came back, it gave me a perspective. It's like, well, what is it really important? Like when you see people suffer for real,
Mm.
like, and you're part of it, like you're in that environment, you live through it, you're not visiting. it changes your brain into to seeing what's important in life.
Mm-hmm.
And so I could live in a closet, you know. I have my own house. You know, like I lived in a closet. Heck, I had I lived in a tractor trailer one time. Like
Wow.
it's right. So those things aren't really impactful for me.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so when I dated rich women, I'm just kind of like, this is what I got to offer in terms of money. Like, I can't take you out to a fancy restaurant often, but I can cook for you because I was a chef for 3 years when I was a kid. Like,
That's
which one would you
cool.
prefer?
Yeah.
Right? Obviously, you throw in what you can, right? And if she looks at you funny, like, hey, this is the best I could do. You want somebody richer? Go find somebody rich. And to have the confidence to say that,
Mm-hmm.
right? To give them a choice. Because that's another thing. A guy would never go against his self interest on purpose. And if you ever done that, you'll realize that the glass ceiling disappears when you do
Hmm.
that. And so when I offer, I was like, you can find you a rich guy, that's fine. Like, it is what it is, right? Like, I'm not gonna, you know, if that's not the type of lifestyle that you're comfortable with, fine, cool. But I will do my best in regards to different experiences that's worth as much as the money that you're gonna spend. And the women, you know, that I dated that were millionaires, they were like, okay, that's fine. I guess I'll take care of this, you know, weekend trip to Amsterdam.
So you had that conversation with them.
I had that conversation on the first date.
Okay. I think that's what I'm hearing across the board throughout everything is communication. It's about talk about the elephant in the room. Don't be afraid of it and because when you don't talk about it is when you get in your head and you create a narrative that's just not true. You really don't know unless you talk about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, like, the money kind of balances out in regards to experience. Like, you have a ton of money, well, what can you really do outside of spending stuff? I
Mm-hmm.
think that's what kind of equals it out, right? She has a ton of money, not have too many experience, because you know what I mean. Like,
Mm-hmm.
your attention has to go somewhere, and you can't be as well rounded as everybody else if you know what I mean. If your job expects you to have a certain amount of attention,
Mm-hmm.
right? She was a lawyer, but all the like funny movie references would go over her head
Mm-hmm.
because she didn't have the weight. You know, she didn't have the the RAM in her hard drive to think about all the other stuff
Mm-hmm.
because her attention and all her focus was getting a degree, getting past law school, be a lawyer, and this is what I like.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I came in the picture, I brought out the stuff that she was like that she didn't have,
Like what?
like um like having somebody that I love lawyers because I could kind of like I could compete, right? And then the playful banter is always like a thing,
Uh-huh.
right? And you see people that would give everything. Like my job at the time, and what a lawyer her job. There's a lot of self-sacrifice that you have to do to be really successful. And
Mm-hmm.
once we met at the middle in regards to, oh, that's the type of person who also gave a lot to be
Mm-hmm.
where we are. That's a really big connecting piece. Like I'm a big history buff, and like I was living in DC at the time in New York, and I was like, this is this, this is this, this is this, this is this. And you give them the world of somebody still it's successful in their own right. It's just not measuring off the scale that you're being measured. That makes sense.
Yeah. It's like looking for commonalities that go beyond like these ego based elements.
Right.
Yeah.
Because
That's
I could have really big ego too.
yeah.
I'm a big smart ass and I could stand toe to toe with it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that's never the thing that you're like. Obviously, if you do it in a bad way, it's never going to be a connected piece.
Right.
But for somebody that you know, like is masculine, is confident, can communicate, can paint a picture, right, and is patient enough to listen, then why would you not want that?
Mm-hmm. Do you think you were born this way? Or do you think you cultivated this confidence?
It's cultivated,
Yeah.
most definitely. The environment that I growing up made it that. And even though like I didn't grow up in a traditional, like I didn't grow up in an Asian community, though I had Asian parents. Um, I think sometimes the parenting piece, like for example, like I always fight with my dad because he did what he could in his way of life was to survive and make it to America.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him, you did like your difficulties in this country are completely different from my difficulties because I have to absorb the culture and be accepted. You don't have to be because you made it here. right? So if you're a first generation type of guy, the fact that you're here, you're fine. Nobody expects you to do anything but just work and define your U.S. citizenship or your green card.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But the child, he or she has to deal with American life, clashing with what the culture was that she's being taught by her parents at home, which kind of creates this identity crisis where it's like these things are what's acceptable in America, it's not acceptable in my house. And so where do you find the balance? For me, it was I grew up in a predominantly African American neighborhood, um, but I was surrounded by a bunch of Mexicans. The part of Georgia that I grew up with had a lot of had a lot of white people,
Mm-hmm.
and there's just like a little bit of Asian community. So you have to be good and be able to connect with all of those things to be able to survive.
Mm-hmm.
And when you become an adult, depending on how well you connect with people, it's either going to be really easy for you to meet other white people around the world. It's going to be really difficult for you when you go to Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
But have you taken the time to really study culture? Because if you didn't, and you study just academics, man, of course you're going to have a hard time because you're ignorant to the world around you.
Yeah.
And like until you find somebody that teaches you those things, then what can you do? Like I was lucky. I made friends with girls really easily without having to be romantically involved. And then that kind of gave me the cultural perspective of what they feel is important in a partner.
Mm-hmm.
Which, like the second I figured it out, I was like, let me just slide in real quick, see if I can, because I already know. It didn't require anything else of me other than keeping an open mind, keeping my mouth shut, and listen.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Yeah,
I mean, look at the numbers.
I was thinking it might be cool to get all. So I did. This is the fourth dating
Mhm.
as an Asian man in America video I've done.
Right.
I think it might be kind of cool to get you all together for a call. I don't know if I don't know if everybody would be down for that, but I think it would be really interesting for people to chat with each other. And like, this is my perspective. This is how I see it.
Yeah, of course.
Cool.
Woo. I mean, yes, I'm all about that because like this is the first time like with you facilitating, isn't it? It's the first time all four people are going to be like, okay, these are my difficulties, these are mine. If they're egos, then by all means, like bring it all out, man. Like I'm all about it.
Yeah.
I'm not, and see, I guess that's kind of the thing too. Is like I'm not shy expressing mine.
Yeah, I think that's good. I find that there's a lot of respectfulness in everyone that I've spoken with. And what I really liked about when you reached out to me, you're like, I have a perspective on this that is different.
Mhm.
And I want to talk about, these things. Like I see that I don't know, I felt like you were kind of saying what I was feeling too, is like that there's like a lot of respect, but what about breaking out of that limiting maybe perception that some people have? Like I will admit, before my dating experiment, I had never dated an Asian man and I had a bias. I didn't
What
know.
were those biases, by the way, if I can ask you?
Same way as what you said, right? It's like
Is
where
that the
does
only
that
one or
come
the both?
from? The penis thing. Where does that come from?
That's the
That's
one.
not even true.
Okay.
That, and then I for some reason I just wasn't naturally attracted. And now, as you know, I did that experiment 10 years ago, but now I'm attracted. I mean, I'm in a relationship, so obviously I'm not like pursuing anything, but I find all humans attractive regardless of race. But before I did that experiment, I had all these biases and I don't even know where it came from. I think a lot comes from media, the way that Asian men are perceived in media versus black men very differently. There's actually a super sexy Asian guy in the show Insecure. I love the way that he's presented. I don't know if you've seen it. It's a chick
I
show.
haven't seen it, but I will.
But I thought it was cool the way that he was like, it was nice to have a role model versus like I just saw the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once.
All the time, yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, man, they're just killing that stereotype with that guy, I felt kind of sad about it, to be honest. So anyways, yeah, but I really like your perspective when you messaged me. I was like, that I would love to have this conversation. I would love to see how you might bring out parts of Con and parts of Derek, and parts of everybody else that they're not speaking into, but that they feel as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's like I embraced everything they said. And I look back at it, I was like, yeah, dude, I know exactly how that felt.
Yeah.
It's just like I know the isolation and being shut down even before you try, or people think that it's a fixed game. It's like, why even bother?
Yeah.
I'm just kind of like, why even bother? Well, anybody else trying this? Like somebody has to be it. And like the advantage, like who was the individual that was talking about having the advantage all the time?
I think it was
You
Derek.
Derek,
Yeah.
like that only works at certain aspects. But then the second you get out of that circle or that bubble where you're really good at it, people are going to expect you to be good at other things too.
Yeah.
But can you deliver on those other things with the expectations that you brought upon yourself?
Yeah. What I think is neat, I would love to see you and Derek talk about this, is how you address it from a different perspective. Like, no, I do not have millions of dollars. And this is how, and that's really interesting. No, I don't need to overcompensate.
Yeah.
But I can also show up and attract the woman that's like, everybody wants, right? That's cool. Really fresh perspective. I like it a lot.
I like doing things from the bottom up. Like to me, to have any type of advantage is cheating.
Interesting.
Like, because it doesn't provide you with a win. Like if you've never won, winning is the objective. But after you won all the time, how many of those wins are quality wins?
Mm.
And how can you really say, like, you play a video game, you put on easy mode, you beat the game. Did you really beat the game? Based on the difficulty that it was intended to play.
Interesting.
Which like that's the big question that I want to ask everybody. It's like, all right, man, you have the advantage. Cool. Take that advantage away. Because 9 times out of 10 you don't have it.
Mm-hmm.
So all the girls that you got based on your advantage, did you really get
them? And did they just like you because of that?
Yeah.
That's what I always say when my students are like, I have a lot of money. I'm like, I don't want you to tell her. You shouldn't be telling her. She shouldn't even know. She should fall in love with you for who you are. And then, oh, by the way, just so happens I'm really successful. Cool. But that's not what you led with.
Right.
Yeah.
I had 2 Porsches and I had 0 women ever since I had that car. Like, I was like, man. I was like, yeah, guys, I got a Porsche. And they're like, and because people don't even know what it is.
Right.
And I'm just like, dude, I just spent so much money. Like, you didn't even get me. And it got a lot of dudes' attention. Like, hey, bro,
dudes, yeah, right. The dudes are all like, yeah.
Yeah, bro, come on, because you're the only one that ever sits here.
Yep. Interesting. Marcus, so good to talk to you. Thank you for reaching out and sharing a little bit about your perspective. I would love to chat with you again about all of this. Any final thoughts or comments for the people watching?
Try your nearest Asian guy and talk to him and see what's up.
There you go.
What's Asian up? Dude, go to that person and say hello. My name is so and so. Nice to meet you. I'm Asian.
Love it.
Here to break stereotypes.
Oh, I love that line. Say that one more time. What was that?
I'm Asian and I'm here to break stereotypes.
What? Use magic. Oh my God. I would love that. If somebody said that to me, I'd be like, well, damn. Amazing. Very cool. I love it. If you guys like this video, make sure to like it and subscribe to the channel. And if you have a thought about this video, please share it with us in the comments below. Would love to hear your perspective. And yeah, so great chatting with you, Marcus. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you.